Hello, guys. I'm back. I'm ready to talk about another movie. Um, and drink another cup of coffee, of course. This light feels weird. I feel like it's too direct, too harsh. Maybe I'm just gonna lean back like this. I don't know, guys. Lighting's not my strong suit. Obviously, filming isn't either. I mean, come on, shitty webcam. Unlike the movie I want to talk about today, The Odyssey. Um, I feel like The Odyssey had I don't even know what you call it. A controversial, like a big entrance to the screen. You know, lots of debate, lots of people talking. I always wonder when movies have that. I always wonder if it's like if it's intentional to like get people to talk about it and then like watch it. Obviously, like we talked about last, Obsession didn't really have a controversial thing, but just because there was so much buzz around it, got a lot of people to go watch it. And I wonder if Odyssey and bigger movies like that do that intentionally to make like certain casting choices or direction choices to kind of get a rise out of people, so to speak. Let me see if I move my microphone, if that's any better. Really, I feel like I really shouldn't change the sound like that in the middle of a video, but whatever. We're working on it. We're trying to make improvements. So let's talk about the Odyssey. What did I think? Ultimately, pretty damn good. I liked it a lot. I thought it was really good. Let me just move this over here. Yeah, it's a little better. And then it looks. Then when I look at the screen, it's a little closer versus me looking over here. Anyway, the movie was good. I thought. I'll be honest with you. When I walked out of the theater, it was probably the least entertained I was. Like walking out of the theater, I was kind of in my mind like, it was all right. But as I kind of sat on it, I saw it Saturday, and it's Tuesday now, so like 3 days or whatever. The more I sit on it, the more I think about it, the more impressed I am. It was a good movie and it's a fun story. And they kind of, I'm not like super familiar with the Odyssey, like the initial tale, like the source material. But I did a little, like I watched a couple videos on it after I saw the movie, trying to kind of make sense because it's 3 hours long. That's one thing, and we'll talk about that a little later. But um, there's elements of it that's not so exciting. Like, you're not really on the edge of your seat, and so it can get kind of hard to like really piece together the narrative. And it's a Christopher Nolan movie, so he's not exactly trying to hold your hand, so to speak. But it was fun. It had a lot of epic shots, a lot of cool action. One thing that I thought was kind of fun is that like at no point do I remember in the movie were we doing like somersaults and backflips and like jumping off of walls. It was very like grounded real action. That was fun. It was, it could feel a little underwhelming maybe at times, but I think that just comes more from being used to seeing, Marvel movies and this and that. That when you get a more grounded film, it can feel a little anticlimactic. But honestly, kudos. I think they did a really good job. I kind of respect that decision. I've seen a lot of like controversy as far as like the wardrobe, um, and like, casting choices with like they gave it the old Alexander Hamilton. So I can't really say anything about that. The only thing I will say is that like it's there, it's present. I know that there's certain actors and actresses in the movie that people take issue with, and they're there. They're in the movie, and they're not, ashamed to be in the movie. So if that's a problem for you, maybe it'll be a deal breaker. Get into the point that I really liked about the movie is the spirit of Odysseus or Odysseus. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but the character it reminded me at times in the movie. It reminded me of Gladiator, like the Russell Crowe Gladiator. Just kind of that. He's just a very loyal man. He's very like obviously he's brave and he's smart and cunning and in the same way that like Maximus kind of had that. I think he was he's kind of more of an revenge tale. Odysseus is kind of different, but he's kind of got that same spirit of like this archetype of a very like brave, strong, capable warrior guy trying to get to his wife and kid. And yeah, I mean it's fun, it's aspirational, right? Like don't we all wish we were as noble as these guys were? And the Odyssey I think touched on that several times, and I think Matt Damon definitely helped bring that. I think he you know I don't know if many people would agree with that, but I thought personally that there were definite moments in the movie where he really brought that kind of like wisdom and kind of just he sold it. There were just moments where I believed that it was Odysseus, and that was pretty fun to watch. And I will say that it wasn't like the whole movie, like Russell Crowe kind of embodied Maximus, and you just couldn't shake the belief that he was Maximus. Matt Damon's not quite like that with Odysseus. You definitely have moments where you just kind of feel like you're watching, Jason Bourne, but they were much more few and far between than I had expected. It was honestly a pretty impressive performance, I thought. Maybe not the most demanding from like a emotional like standpoint, but that's not really who the character was. The character is supposed to be this kind of larger than life, perfect person. It's like an aspirational character rather than a relatable character. And in that context, I really liked him. The other character I got to give props to is Anne Hathaway. I thought that, well, no, she's not the character. I think her character is Penelope. No, that might be Penelope. I can't remember. I'm not familiar enough, hardly enough to get these names right. But Anne Hathaway, who played her, was just really good. I really enjoyed it. She was just really fun. She sold it. There were scenes where, frankly, she was scary. Like it was like, I could feel my heart racing. It was just so intense, and I thought that was really fun from her. But then she also got this like very compassionate, loving, empathetic side across, and that was really fun to watch. And of course, kind of like Odysseus, she's kind of this larger than life, like perfect character. Again, was just extraordinarily loyal and wise and thoughtful. And, so it's again kind of more of an aspirational character, I suppose, than an, relatable one. And that kind of goes for a lot of the people in the film. Um, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the big thing. The action, like I say, was grounded and real, and I appreciate that, but it is also a little underwhelming just because of how long the movie is. You'll spend like 40 minutes waiting to see a fight, and then the fight is like 20 minutes on its own, and it's kind of just very real and, you know, grounded, I guess. I don't know. There were times where it was a little bit much, just how slow and repetitive it can be. You can only watch someone swing a sword so many times before it's kind of like you gotta add some flavor, and that's another thing where I don't want to overdo this, but like compare it again to like Gladiator. Because obviously Gladiator is a film where it's the same fucking thing. You're just fighting in the same relatively similar setting with the Colosseums and stuff, and you're kind of just using relatively similar weapons. There's only so many weapons around at that time. The Gladiator keeps it shaken up. There's animals involved, there's chariots involved, there's, armor involved, and that's always there's all these variables. And Odyssey doesn't really do that. So the combat's kind of limited in the context you get to see it. I think there's only like, a few weapons that they use, and even then they don't really shake up the fighting styles very much, so it's kind of just a little bland. Also, I don't, I'm not a fighter. I have no idea, like, as far as the accuracy or even the different styles, though I'm just kind of speaking as an audience member, just as someone who watched the movie. That's what I was thinking, watching the action scenes. The monsters are kind of undersold. They're a little understated, and I think that was intentional from the movie. And it played all right. Again, it's like two things where it's like it's very fun. Once you've seen the movie, I really have enjoyed thinking about the movie and like the thoughts that that's provoked for me. But on the other hand, the movie, like watching the movie itself, it feels like you're on an odyssey of your own. I mean, it's a journey, and it takes fucking 3 hours to get where you're going. And, that's not everyone's cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. And so I think here is where I'm going to just kind of break into that, talking about that, because long movies is a bigger topic. And a lot of people, I've heard discussion around it. But for me personally, I think 90 minutes is about as long as you can expect someone to sit still in one place, focused on, this one narrative. After about 90 minutes, man, if you keep it going, if your movie's like an Odyssey, it's like 3 hours or 2 hours and some minutes long, people just aren't going to be able to really pay attention for that last 90 minutes, unless they're exceptionally gripped by the movie. Your average to just above average audience member, they're just not gonna be able to stay focused that long. Like after 90 minutes, I'm looking for, you need to get up, you need to move, you need to get some blood flowing, you need to get some fresh air that isn't, this little space. You need to see some light and just kind of like let your brain reset. For me, that's how it is. Like I need to even just walking around the theater, like for 10 minutes and just like reading different signs and like listening in on little conversations, just kind of resetting the narrative in my mind, kind of moving things, into deeper memory and getting a chance to like reset my focus. I mean, literally, even if you're studying for a test, that's how you're supposed to do it. You're only supposed to do it in like these set intervals and then you take a little break. I think they recommend only like an hour. So we know that people's brains, you just can't comprehend what you're seeing and hearing fully after like an hour of focus. And I think that a 3 hour movie, I mean, you're literally going three times. By the end of the Odyssey, I just could not follow what was going on. I had to come home and watch videos the next day to really understand what all was being said and why it mattered. I find myself personally in a 3 hour movie, a lot of the time by the end, I'm constantly asking myself, just kind of confused, like, why are we seeing this? Like, why is this happening? And I think that that's just a symptom of just kind of letting that runtime go too long. And I will say, because I've heard directors, and I think Christopher Nolan is even one of the ones that's like talked about it, and they make it sound like their art form is being held captive, by this 90-minute time restriction. And, yeah, get over it a little bit. I say, all due respect to these incredible artists and, and what they do. I could never, I don't mean to disrespect, but yeah, put an intermission in there at least. I think it's kind of weird that you can expect someone to sit and watch a film for longer than you expect them to watch like a play. I mean, I would argue that like a live musical play would be more engaging than any kind of movie you could cook up, just by a stimulus standpoint. And and they give you a break, man. They let you walk around for 15 minutes and use the bathroom and this and that. And the reason I don't understand why they're not doing that with movies. I do think the Odyssey needed about 3 hours to be really told that way. But man, I would have actually enjoyed it a lot more and like been able to actually focus on the movie if I'd been able to get up and walk around for 10 minutes around the 90-minute mark. That's a personal gripe, that I have with like longer movies, and I don't even buy that whole like, restricting your art form and this and that. So yeah, just get out of here with that. It's just too much content, it's too much information. Even scrolling, is like at least you're focusing on different things. And as we know, if you were to scroll for 3 hours, God help you to remember anything you just watched, other than like the last two reels you scrolled through. And so to go, to try to use that as like a reason, like almost a diss to the younger generation of why we should be watching 3 hour movies, it just doesn't make sense, man. It's not the same. And the Odyssey certainly is not as entertaining as scrolling through TikTok. It's not meant to be, it's not designed to be that way. I just don't think the format of movies is meant to be sat through for 3 hours or 4 hours straight. I think you need at least a little break. So I'm starting a campaign for intermissions in long movies. Um, no, I mean, that's just a personal thing. I don't know if anyone relates to that, but like, I'm kind of over these long movies. I really was not gonna go see the Odyssey until my friends were kind of like, they were all gonna go, and I was like, well, all right, I want to get dinner and do the whole experience. So I went. But yeah, I mean, by the end, it's like my back hurts, my eyes hurt, I can't barely follow the movie. I'm just kind of dead inside. Like, I mean, I'm exaggerating it, but anyway, I just think that the movies could be a hell of a lot shorter than that. A little shout out here that one thing I noticed from the movie was the guy, the second in command on the ship, or that's kind of what I understood his role to be. The actors from Yesterday, that movie, where everyone in the world like forgets about like the Beatles or someone like that, or I think just a whole number of like famous artists, but he can remember and he like starts playing these songs as if they're his. I don't know if that rings a bell for you, but anyway, that was him in the Odyssey. And when I first saw him, I was like, oh God, no! Like, what are we doing? Um, like he's a comedian or something. But I mean, I liked him. I think he was kind of funny, and he was kind of like this, little different character. He didn't really fit the feel of the movie so completely. I just really liked it. It was one of those things where it was just fun to watch. And fun to watch him on screen and like have a laugh, and I don't know, it was pretty cool. Um, I gotta say it, unfortunately. There's two things here actually, because the other two like big actor and actress in there, Zendaya and Tom Holland. Zendaya, I'll talk about first because I don't really. Zendaya, like, she played it right. Like, it wasn't bad acting or anything like that. But, I mean, am I mistaken? That is, like, exactly what she did in Dune. Like, is that not? I mean, she's just, like, standing, like, in the distance, just, yeah, just, like, disapproving scowls at the main character from some, sandy beach or dune. I just felt like I was like, what the hell? Like, did you just cast her to play the same person? It didn't make sense to me, and I just so that was weird, and I just couldn't. I don't know why. Every time, I mean, I was literally, it got a laugh out of me almost every other time she was on screen because all I could think was like, is Zendaya getting typecast as the like scowling dead wife or like dead person? I think in Dune there's something. Honestly, I haven't actually watched the third part of Dune or whatever the new one coming out. I remember I watched the first two parts and they were good. Kind of the same issue though. I just can't sit through 3 hours of film without a break, man. So I'm trying to watch them at home or whatever. Anyway, not important. That's all I had to really say about it, Zendaya. Because other than that, I mean, she totally owned the role. Like, I mean, she's really good at looking disapprovingly at the main character from an ethereal distance, and you know, she did it here too. But I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was kind of funny, and it literally was having me laugh in the theater. Um, and I don't think it was supposed to be a funny scene. That's kind of all I thought about that. Now, unfortunately, this is where we got to be a little, this is where I'm going to get a little harsh, is Tom Holland. I mean, that was a bad casting choice in my mind. I just really feel like he's not ready. He's not made for that kind of role. And all due respect to Tom Holland, and like, I hear I like what Tom Holland puts out into the world. I like that energy is very positive, and a lot of respect for that. And so I don't mean to come across as just a hater, right? But I didn't fuck with this. This was not fun to watch, in my opinion. I think his look and his voice and just I don't know, just his mannerisms. It's just too modern. It just really took me out of the immersion of what it was building when he was on screen. There's like one scene where he like yells and kind of like is this like for the first time in the movie, kind of this more assertive, like almost like you kind of for me it was like, well, okay, maybe he could be the king, but it just doesn't come out right. It's just not this authentic grittiness. It doesn't come across like someone living in Ithaca, on this island who without a grew up without a father. Like it just kind of came across like Spider-Man, and that's cool, but you know, it just wasn't what I looked for the movie, and it didn't fit the movie. I didn't feel like it gelled with everything else going on, and it kind of, unfortunately, his performance was kind of the standout bad part of the movie, um, for me, unfortunately. There are plenty of other actors and actresses in there that, did great, and they're almost unnoticeable in a good way. Like they're just not really coming to mind as much because they just kind of played their role in the story so well, and then they moved on. And that was, so they all did really good. I'm sure there's a lot more people we could get into, but just off of one watching, that's kind of the big ones that stood out to me. The one that I will say is John Bernthal, just because I'm a really big Walking Dead fan. I've watched a lot of The Walking Dead for years, and so it was fun to see him. I love watching him get like bigger roles and stuff, even just because as much as I love the guy, I mean, I think the meme has made it pretty clear. It's like, yeah, this is not like crazy actor. It's not like the best acting ever. You show up to a Bernthal movie because you like John Bernthal and you like that energy that he brings. But yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about it. Odyssey. Ultimately, I thought it was pretty good. I will say that I'm finding myself enjoying thinking about it more than I did actually watching it. But I think a big part of that is just because it's too damn long, and you need to have a break for that. But yeah, so now I'm gonna try to edit this video and, and salvage something usable from it, something that hopefully you're understanding. If you're at the end of the video right now, hopefully you're able to like piece together some string of insanity that I've talked about today. And I hope you like the Odyssey as well if you watch it, or if you didn't like it, I think I understand, but I would love to hear it in the comments. So I'm gonna make another video soon, probably a little, maybe in a couple days. So I'm not really figuring out schedule yet. Right now I'm just gonna try to upload a video every few days or so, and hopefully improving the quality. Hopefully this video was a little better than my last one on obsession. Yeah, other than that though, I hope you have a good day or night or wherever it is that you are. And yeah.